Well, it was like a book series.
Yeah, it's R.L. Stine.
But it's not like this isn't an adaptation of, like, it was like...
I think it kind of is.
Oh. I thought it was I thought Fear Street was like a brand name. So I thought this was sort of like in the vein of versus being an actual adaptation.
So I guess I don't know if it's like a specific book, but the Fear Street is a series of books he wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I thought this was like a...
That I don't know. I never read them. I was not a Goosebumps person, so...
Hello, everybody. I'm Will.
And I'm Kristen.
This is So I'm Watching This Show, your twice-weekly pop culture podcast where we talk about movies, TV, music, and more. And as always, this is a spoiler show, so you have been warned. On today's episode, we're going to have a conversation about the new Netflix movie, Fear Street, 1994.
Sarah Fear's back. Christ, not you too.
There's no angry, dead witch. The only thing that made him go crazy is this town.
The dude was wearing a Halloween skull mask. How is that not fun? Guys, I think there's someone in the woods.
I knew nothing about this. Like, literally, I just heard people talking about it. Mm-hmm. So much so that when I was trying to find it, to like watch it, we hadn't even decided we were covering it.
Yeah.
But I was just so intrigued because the writer Jason Adams compared it to The Final Girls.
Yeah.
Which is a relatively apt comparison. The Final Girls has more humor. Like it's more whimsical.
I think The Final Girls has more heart as well.
Sure.
But I do accept the comparison because they are in the vein, in a vein together for sure.
This was so off my radar, like so much so that when I was trying to find it, I just kept typing Netflix Fright Night.
Oh, okay.
And I finally, through some combination of Netflix, 1994, Fright Night, and R.L. Stine, Google was finally like, do you mean Fear Street? And I was like, that's the one that I mean.
Can I help you?
So I put it on, and I mean, I was 5 minutes in when I was like, I love this.
Well, the Scream homage that starts the movie.
So,
plus Maya Hawke.
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, I liked her on Stranger Things 3, and I have a fondness for her as Uma Thurman's daughter, who Uma Thurman is... There was a point in time where I just was like, hands down, she's like my favorite actress. And I haven't seen all of her work, but I've seen a lot of it. And it just... She really, really captures that kind of something. And this opening scene is... The whole movie, really, it manages to do that thing where there's like entire shots lifted from Scream.
Wholesale, yeah.
And it doesn't feel like a ripoff.
No, it feels like an homage. I mean, she's going under the gate to the bookstore, and I was like, Tatum!
Like the scene of her running and it turns into kind of like slow motion as he comes up behind her. And I was like, there's so many things that, it's crazy. And the mall setting, I mean, we're in a very nostalgic place and we are millennials. We're elder millennials. And I was 9 years old in 1994.
Yeah,
so a little bit younger than these kids, but not by much, you know? And there was just something about all of it that was working. I love that the movie wasn't afraid of color.
Yeah.
There was neon. There was some style. There was flares. And because we mentioned Lee Janik, the director, she's married to a Duffer brother.
Yeah.
And this has strong Stranger Things vibes, but also, and again, it doesn't feel like it's ripping off Stranger Things, at least not to me.
No, it didn't feel... Although it did look exactly like the Starcourt Mall. Like, I think it might have been the Starcourt Mall. But, I mean, again, who cares? What are you going to do? All malls kind of look like that. She was so clearly working in a Walden's Books.
Thank you for shopping at B. Dalton's.
Yeah.
He was so clearly working in a Spencer's. I had the privilege and the pleasure of working at the mall in 2003 at Sam Goody, and it just like that was when both malls and Sam Goody were still a thing.
Yeah, and Walden Books.
Like I remember
she also directed 2 episodes of the Scream, the TV series.
Like I remember the Britney Spears In the Zone CD came out while we were working there, and we were having to like ship CDs to other stores to meet the demands and stuff. Like it just had that kind of, and the closing. I mean, granted, she probably wouldn't be closing by herself, but you know.
Well, also the way the malls work, it's like the stores don't close after the mall. You know what I mean? Like she's there. She's like, the mall is dark and she's there alone closing up the bookstore. I appreciate that we are pulling Maya Hawke up to the level of Drew Barrymore. I like that we live in that world.
I wonder who this movie is. I mean, it's for anyone who wants to watch it, but do you think it's for us, or do you think it's for new kids?
I think it's more for new kids than it is for us. I think we are the demographic. Like my husband read these books, and so it's for him in that way. But based on some things, like
and he seemed to be like just straight delighted.
No, he loved it. Specifically, the like music. The like needle drops in this, that's for new people, because it was like, I mean, there was Bush, there was Creep by Radiohead, there was like so many garbage. I'm Only Happy When It Rains by Garbage. And so it's like there's all these like, I know all those songs, none of those are deep cuts from the 90s. They're all just like
standards
cuts from the 90s. So I think that part is more for like kids today.
They're also very front loaded because both of you kind of were like, okay, this is getting to be a bit.
Well, as soon as Creep by Radiohead started, I was like, oh my God.
Well, we get like 4 in a minute because it's sort of like a montage of them sort of like introducing the characters.
Everybody's brain song is different. Yeah.
Wish I was your
Sophie B. Hawkins. Yeah.
That tapers out and it really does. With a very, I don't know that it's exactly exciting or memorable, but a very apt score. I did really enjoy the score. Something that I liked about this movie is I did watch it knowing that there were 2 more coming, and I'm giddy about the fact that we're getting the sequels a week later.
You're right. It's just like in the summer of July of 2021, the fact that we have 3 scary movies 3 weeks in a row is very satisfying.
That I didn't know were coming.
Yeah.
It's like a weird present.
Yeah.
Like,
it's very like,
Well, to compare it to Stranger Things again, it was like just Stranger Things in 2016 when we were like, well, let's watch that new Winona Ryder show.
Yeah, we really were. That is really what we were saying.
It showed up in my email, and I was like, this looks weird. We
were hung over.
I could go for like a vat of Chinese food. It felt like it knew what it was completely.
Yeah.
I could tell we were in for a ride. I could tell we were dealing with mythos. I could tell we were dealing with fantasy. And it has this really gleeful, playful, nasty streak. That it's really flirtatious with it. Like there are times where I think the movie's downright tame.
Yeah.
And then
it's got a very chaste lesbian relationship at the center of it, and it's like that stuff's all very
unexamined, which because they have their cake and eat it too a lot of different ways, because obviously her mother is like anti-it in a way that makes sense. And you have to remember this was 1994. And they were treating it rather like today, but I think the girls were fine. In particular, Sam, I got it. I liked her. She kind of had this quality that I was like a little bit on Kate's side, where I was like, can we just throw this bitch in the hall?
Yeah, right. Like, come on. Come on.
But I don't know. I really love the whole like Pawnee Eagleton thing. And
Shady Side and Sunnyvale, but like it was the Sunnyvale mascot were the devils. I just like something's rotten in Sunnyvale too.
There's so many people, and I'm wondering, are we getting into that with the next 2 movies, or is this going to? We are okay.
I was doing a thing that I didn't realize was going to be a spoiler until I did it, but I was clicking on the people to see what else they'd been in, because Kate especially. Her name is Julia Raywald, and I thought I recognized her from something else. I didn't. But almost everybody in this cast are in the other 2 in some capacity. So it's all connected.
Yeah, there were, I saw a lot of comments because I did a deep dive because I hate myself on the internet to see what people were saying. And there's just like, there's just so many ways to know that you're not for me.
Yeah.
And it's if you're going to come into a movie like this and be like, why don't they just move?
Oh
and it's God. Like, you already fundamentally don't understand the genre. Like, you don't understand.
It's explained in the movie that they are after her blood. It's not like that stops at county lines.
No, the people who in this town. Because I'm a little bit on the Jerk Peter side where he's like, it's not a tragedy when it happens every week. I would get exhausted at a certain point having to do that. Because it's like they can set their watch to it, to the murder sprees. But I'm like, that's the confines of the genre. I was like, those are the same idiots who can't figure out how they all know the words in a musical. But there's just certain things that you kind of allow.
Yeah.
I found it interesting and bold that all of the characters were likable.
Yeah.
No one was really underwritten and no one was particularly terrible, save for the bad guy.
Yeah, the actual murderer. No, I agree with you. I did find them all compelling in their own way. And yeah, nobody was like, there was nothing with Dina and Josh. There was no like sibling bullshit really, which was great. I really liked that. There was no
But we still got the vibe because she was yelling at him to answer the door and he was listening. I want to know who he was talking to in the computer. Who, the Queen of Air and Darkness?
We might find out.
Okay.
I think we might find out. Yeah, I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that Kate already knew that Dina was a lesbian and she seemed to not care. I liked that Simon didn't care that Kate made out with Josh because it was just like life or death circumstances. And he was like, did everybody go to Pound Town? So funny.
He's in the woman in the window.
Yeah.
And it's a really, really weird role. And
this feels like more like who he is in life.
And he has this quality that you kind of can't help but fall in love with him.
No, he's very
in
cute.
spite of himself.
Yeah.
He's such a doofus.
Yeah.
But he's like, I don't know what it is. He's really silly.
Yeah.
And he's because you made a comment when we were watching it. He's an otter. He's a little otter.
Has so much chest and belly hair. I was based on his head hair. Well, I was not anticipating.
He stripped down the entire movie,
and then he puts on that like low cut, low back like cardigan, and you can just still see it.
You were kind of loving that.
I loved it. It was such a good silhouette on him.
I watched the Vivienne, and I don't remember who was with her, but it was the UK queens who like to watch. And they watched it, and they were like living for the cardigan.
Yeah, it was
and
great.
Like they were so sad when he died because
I was sad when he died too.
I was curious.
Oh, he's 25. Okay, I don't feel like such a creep now. Felt a little like I was like, how old is he?
I was curious who was gonna die, when, how, and if anything was gonna matter. I'm still a little curious if anything's gonna matter. I don't think they're going to undo it. But I feel like these next two movies are what?
Well, none of them take place in the future from this.
No, I understand that, but I don't know. I feel like there's information still coming. It was particularly difficult losing Kate and Simon. The Kate thing, how did you feel about it? I warned you.
Way too much. Way too horrible. Like, because I'm less mad about Simon because he got an axe to the head and was dead immediately. I don't appreciate the Kate thing because she got stabbed in the gut first and then he twisted the knife and then they had accidentally flicked on the bread slicer in the like, you know, bakery section of this grocery store.
He also, if we're following the movie chronologically, he then sort of like cake boards her for like a minute and a half. He does
smush her face in cake.
But it's like ongoing.
Yeah. But then he shoves her head first through the bread slicer. I can't get on board with that.
So
it was just too, it was because of the context of the rest of the movie, that was too gruesome and horrible.
It was leagues further than any of the other deaths.
Yeah.
And it was extremely unearned. Like we had no reason for that.
Like she was not, because that goes back to the thing where none of them are unlikable. Like she didn't do anything. Like she wasn't, you know, to bring back up the final girls, she wasn't the bitch. Like she didn't like deserve to die. And so it just is like, not only did neither of them deserve to die, but she extra didn't deserve to die like that.
So I was curious how you're going to feel. I've kind of made my peace with it.
Well, sure. I mean, I can't do anything about it.
Well,
also, she really...
I mean, sometimes things... Do we need to talk about Zara Larson again? Sometimes a movie... No. Or that's her name, yeah. So something like that can break a movie.
I don't think it breaks the movie, but I literally couldn't watch it because as soon as the bread slicer cut on, I was like, But apparently Lee Janiak like fought for it so much that the producers were like, that would never happen. And so they got a bread slicer and put a watermelon through it. And they were like, well, it's not going to work. And then it worked. And the production team was like, well.
So that's two different points I'm making now. Because I agree it wouldn't happen. It would absolutely fuck her up. But it wouldn't. I mean, a bone saw is called a bone saw for a reason.
I mean, it's a bunch of tiny serrated knives.
I don't know. Anyway, I didn't
like
quite...
moving like saws. I don't
guess.
know. Yeah.
So the other point that I'm trying to make, though, is it was unique.
It was unique.
It was original. And it does sort of put the movie on the map.
That's fair.
It's gonna get talked about.
Yeah.
It's gonna hit the zeitgeist, at least the horror zeitgeist, you know? So I am of two minds. I wish it was like... I wish it wasn't Kate. I wish it was like the killer or some
like if,
punk kid or even her boyfriend or something. I don't...
Well, I didn't want it to be Simon. I didn't want that... Oh, her
Peter,
boyfriend. Sam's boyfriend. Okay.
Because you're right. The rest of them are so...
Peter is arguably the like biggest asshole in this movie and he just gets stabbed. And I'm just like... And I mean... I guess.
And credit in the movie's favor, credit where credit's due. We do, even though Maya Hawke, even though Heather is only stabbed a couple of times... It's a death scene.
Yeah.
She's choking up on blood and gurgling and stuff. Yeah. And it does let you know.
I said elevated to Drew Barrymore on purpose.
Yeah, it does let you know that the movie can and will go there. We have, Sandra. I was going to call her like Sandra Day or whatever. Peggy Lee, who's the one that sings. There's a ghost girl that sings and she has a straight razor. But she gets her eye shot out.
No, Ruby Lane.
She gets her eye shot out. And actually the weird little flashes to like the killers of the past. One of them was like a child who like beat his brother to death with a bat.
That was pretty tough too.
And we get like 3 seconds of like that carnage. And so, I mean, I'm not trying to be precious. I know what we're doing. And I think the movie, it balanced it well. I won't say perfectly. No. Because there were just a handful of times that I thought the movie was slightly sillier than some of its highest stakes.
Sure.
I just kind of loved it. I was thrilled. We get a witch. We get like...
Which it's gonna continue. The witch is gonna play into more of it. So there is this like vast past mythos about it's this witch with one hand who is like essentially possessing all of these other killers to come back and like
avenge,
the rest of like the people in the town. Yeah, I don't know. I quite enjoyed it. And I also I think we have to mention Sheriff Goody Proctor.
Yeah, I saw him with the devil.
He was hot.
He was.
He's like
he was.
We were discussing it. It's like if you smashed Aaron Tveit and BJ Novak together. Very sexy. I was super into it. And his name in real life is Ashley, which just every time makes me want to say, oh, Ashley.
It ended on an ominous note. I know we're going back in the past, but I still think that we're going forward a little bit. We had the bit where Josh was defending Kate and Simon. And if that's it, I mean, again, to compare it to Stranger Things for a 9th time, sometimes Barb dies.
Yeah.
That's the reality of these movies. It comes with the territory, but I just wouldn't be surprised if there's something more in store because Sam didn't kill Dina.
Yeah.
I think if this were a one-off...
She stabbed her pretty good. But.
Yeah, I think if this were a one-off, that it would have ended there.
Sure.
I don't know if it's the combination of elements, because like I said, a huge part of it was also the nostalgic factor for us. But I'm also just thrilled that it seems like we're finally moving out of the 80s.
And the 90s are going to be the thing.
We've been in the 80s for what feels like 30 years.
Well, remember, there was the bits in the original Gossip Girl where it was like Rufus and Lily knew each other in the 90s and like Rufus knew Lisa Loeb. And that was very cool. But that was like the first time we'd ever been like, because everybody was, 16 in like, 2010 or whatever. And their parents were like meeting in the 80s. And I was like, what the fuck are we doing? There's no way.
Well, because even Riverdale, now they managed.
That was a Riverdale, yeah.
They managed to make it like that timeline was anywhere from like 85 to 94.
Yeah.
But still.
But it's like, also that show's so anachronistic across the board that you don't know what time anything's happening.
Because this also doesn't not have a Riverdale feel.
No, yeah.
It's a real amalgamation of a lot of things that are that are in the zeitgeist right now, and it does all of them really well.
Agreed.
And it was big fun.
Yeah, super big fun.
I was trying to pitch it to Rachel. I was like, "Oh, you'd like it." I was like, "Yeah, sure. It's scary. Like someone goes headfirst into a bread slicer." I was like, "But it's like fun." I was like, "It's like Scream and blah blah." And so I like finished my pitch, and she was just standing there, and she just was like, "You do realize that Scream has never been qualified as fun for me."
No,
like,
I think it's so fun.
She was like, "That's not something I could ever call fun."
So fun.
So I'm a sucker for the "and then there were none" trope. I
sure.
love it. And
also, the last thing I'll say is props for having the like climax of this movie in a grocery store instead of a mall or the old mill, or something like that. The abandoned soap factory. I dug that a lot because it's unusual. That's not like at the school. It didn't happen at the school. It was cool. I liked it a lot. I'm excited to watch the next one.
It was so badass coming out with like the fire.
Yeah.
And like.
Yep. The hairspray and a lighter.
Okay, we're gonna move on and we're gonna watch 1970s.
78, I think. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.